Today we are talking about acupuncture. This project is by Mary,
Jess,
Nick.
Do you know what acupuncture is?
Acupuncture is the process of sticking needles into the body for influencing psychological functioning.
When was acupuncture invented?
I think it was invented around 600 BC during the Chinese Zhou dynasty.
How did acupuncture start?
Acupuncture was originally a superstition, and it later became a part of the medical field.
What was the Chinese superstition about acupuncture?
They thought acupuncture would fulfill their destiny so that they would go to heaven.
Who performs the acupuncture?
People called shaman would stick the needles of acupuncture that were made of stone or bronze into the person.
Is acupuncture still performed today?
Yes, acupuncture is a form of stress relief today, and it is used for medical purposes. Acupuncture is an alternative for surgery or drugs.
paper money was created because there was so much buying and selling that there became a copper shortage. Then paper money was made.
The increase of currency further spurred the growth of commerce.
Unlike copper, paper has no value in itself.
If there is too much paper money circulated, it loses its value.
Merchants trade long strings of copper coins for paper money in deposit shops.
Jiazi invented paper money during the Song dynasty.
Paper money was 25% linen and 75% cotton.
The magnetic compass was first invented and was being used by the Song dynasty.
It was first invented by the Chinese, but the specific inventor is unknown.
The first magnetic compass were made by a mineral called lodestone.
Lodestone is magnetic, so it is influenced by Earth's magnetic field. The lodestone by itself wasn't the most accurate compass, so they rubbed the steel needle against lodestone and made it so that the needle was always pointing north,
thus creating the compass.
In the beginning, the compasses were used to align houses and other buildings in accordance with Chinese practices. Soon, they became a very popular navigational tool. It is still used today for both land and sea navigation.
The magnetic compass has come a long way from being at first just a magnetic rock to what we know the compass as today.
It has become a crucial instrument for finding your way around the world.
Today we are talking about the Chinese invention of paper.
It was invented because the Chinese needed a way to keep records, and their previous ideas were not efficient.
Paper was invented by an unknown person around 49 BCE during the Han Dynasty.
They first used tortoise shells and bones, then tried wooden tablets and bamboo.
To make paper, you need mulberry bark fiber that, once dry, forms a strong, light material.
While papyrus is only durable in dry climates, paper can be used in moist climates.
What about applications of paper today?
Paper is still used today in China, Japan, and Korea. Fine paper is still made from mulberry.
Today we're talking about the Chinese invention of the movable type printing press. The printing press was invented by Pai Sheng between 1034 and 1048 AD.
Originally, the press used clay characters instead of the traditional wooden blocks. The press was not widely used in China at first due to the large amounts of alphabet characters. The printing press was widely used in Europe in 1450.
Today's printers still use the same methods as the original printing press.
Some jobs today use the movable type printing press, but they are not used widely.
Today we are talking about the Chinese invention of woodblock printing.
Woodblock printing or xylography was an important invention in China.
The inventor is unknown, but we do know it was created in the 7th century during the Zhou dynasty.
Woodblock printing involved a lot of work. First, the printer drew characters onto a paper and glued them to a wooden block. Then they cut out the wood so that the character was raised out so it could be covered with ink to press them onto paper.
By the 8th century, woodblock printing took off. Religious and other works were being printed.
By the 11th century, the Chinese invented movable type. This way they could reuse the blocks they made.
Woodblock printing led to printing today.
Being able to print made books much less rare and inexpensive.
Woodblock printing led to movable type. Movable type was used to print all books, magazines, and newspapers until recently.
Woodblock printing was a great invention that is still very useful today.
Our group focused on the ancient Chinese mechanical clock, which was a very important tool invented and used back then.
The first one was invented and thought up in the year 725. It showed how much the Chinese believed in philosophy as well as their cultural appliances.
It was invented by a Chinese Buddhist monk and mathematician named Dixing, and after many days and nights of thinking through the process of time, they came up with the first Chinese clock.
Although much different than the clocks we use today, it was actually more complicated.
The very first clock that they made was in the image of the round heavens, and on it were shown the lunar mansions in their order, the equator, and the degrees of the heavenly circumference. Water falling into scoops turned the wheel automatically, rotating at one complete revolution day and night.
Today we have digital clocks used with electricity, regular analog clocks using hands that we can use on our wrists, and even clocks on little handheld devices.
The great ancient mechanical clocks that were first invented in China had a great impact on Chinese technology and the technology we have today.
This is a video about the paddle wheel boat by Clara, Emily, and Ryan.
The paddle wheel boat was made in the 5th century in China.
It was first used by Admiral Wang Chen O.
It was easier to maneuver than boats with sails, and it was used as a warship.
The wheel was made out of wood.
The paddle wheel was not seen on European boats until the 14th century.
The paddle wheel boat is still used today for pleasurable rides.
Steel. Steel was invented around 200 BCE during the Han Dynasty in China.
The inventor of steel remains unknown.
It was made from iron, but a specific type of iron called cast iron.
This was less brittle than iron and easier to build things with.
It was also lighter, which made it good for making armor for battle.
They also built bridges with it.
Steel was very good for trading.
China traded it on the Silk Road.
It was better than other metal because it was lighter and easier to work with.
It is one of the most common materials in the world.
It's still used today.
It is used to make things such as machines, cars, tools, bolts, nails, screws, knives, bridges, construction frames, ships, roads, railways, and many other things.
The Chinese invented something which would become very useful throughout the whole world today. Made by
Sandra, Savio, Casey, and Liam.
Today we are talking about gunpowder and flamethrowers.
When the Chinese discovered gunpowder, it revolutionized the world.
Gunpowder is a mixture of saltpeter, charcoal, and sulfur. Alchemists accidentally discovered this mixture while trying to find the elixir of life.
They warned people not to use it, not knowing what it could do.
This happened in the Tang Dynasty around 850 CE.
Later, in the late Song Dynasty, 11th century, the Chinese discovered what it could be used to do.
Gunpowder was originally used for celebrations.
They used it to power fireworks and early forms of rockets.
Today we still use flamethrowers and a different kind of gunpowder to power our guns.
The gunpowder we have today has evolved over the years and is called smokeless powder.
The modern version of flamethrowers are carried by foot soldiers, armored fighting vehicles, and helicopters.
Gunpowder is used across the world and has helped shape history. The world truly would not be the way it is today without it.
Smallpox started in the 11th century of Imperial China and became a childhood illness.
The vaccine was also invented for smallpox in Imperial China by the Prime Minister Sun Wang, along with other wise men, magicians, and physicians of China.
But during the 16th century, Taoist alchemists already held the secret of inculcating the smallpox disease. This alchemist had lived in caves.
Although the vaccine was not widely known or practiced until about 1567 to 1572.
And during the 17th century, this Chinese practice had also moved west to Europe and Turkey.
The primary procedure for the vaccine was to put pox material from a scab from somebody who had the disease on cotton and put it in the person's nose, where it's absorbed by breathing through the mucous membrane.
This improved immunity while also protecting the person from the disease. This is still practiced today, and it still prevents the disease while improving immunity.
Today we are going to talk to you about the history of porcelain.
Porcelain was first made around 850 CE during the Tang Dynasty.
It is made by combining clay with rocks and feldspar that is baked in a kiln or oven at very high temperatures.
Other variations of porcelain were created during the Song Dynasty, such as eggshell porcelain, longchan, and Jingbei wares.
The inventor of porcelain today is still unknown, but we do know that the Portuguese introduced the name porcelain.
Porcelain's origin in China led to it to be called China.
We today still use porcelain in dolls, plates, bowls, vases, and much more.
This video is about steel and how it was used in China. How was steel invented?
It was invented by accident by the Chinese before 200 BCE.
What is steel made from?
Steel is made from iron, but it is less brittle and easier to bend.
How much does it cost to make steel?
The Chinese learned to mix cast iron and wrought iron in the 5th century, which let them produce large amounts of steel cheaply.
How is steel used today?
Steel is now one of China's biggest industries, and it is used in buildings and cars.
That was the invention of steel in China.
One thing the Chinese invented was rockets.
Rockets were invented in 1150 CE during the Song Dynasty. The inventor of the rockets is still unknown.
The rockets were originally used for fireworks and later used as weapons.
The first rockets were made by combining firecrackers and arrows. Firecrackers are made by putting gunpowder and bamboo tubes.
Around 1300 CE, they invented stability devices for rockets. With their improvements, rockets have been used to invent satellites and nuclear weapons.
This is a segmental arch bridge.
It was invented in 610 CE, the Sui dynasty.
They were invented by Chinese engineers.
They were shaped as a smaller part of a circle than the original semicircle bridge.
It took less material to build.
And it was stronger too.
They were broader and flatter.
There are many segmental arch bridges still around the world today.
For example, there is the Crooked River Gorge in Oregon, which was constructed in 2000.
Also, the Marco Polo Bridge is the oldest bridge in Beijing, China.
Hello guys, we are talking about canal locks. Che Wei-yo, the Provincial Transportation Commissioner, built the first quarter chamber or pound lock on the Grand Canal in 983 AD.
Before locks, the Chinese had to drag their boats up stone ramps to reach water at a higher level, which could seriously damage the boats. Locks were a great new way to move boats to different water levels.
Canal locks allowed boats to be transported to different water levels easily and efficiently, therefore making travel and trade much easier.
Canals are still used today in many places, including the famous Panama Canal.
Locks in the Welland Canal raised ships 325 feet between Lakes Ontario and Erie by using 8 locks.
Locks worked like this. A boat entered the lock, which sealed behind it. Then the water level in the lock changed to match the water level of the place the boat wanted to get to, either by letting water out of the lock or into it. The other side of the lock opened, and the boat could move on.